Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Boston Balling. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut. As always, it's another beautiful Tuesday. I hope everyone's week is off to a good start. We had an interesting weekend of playoff football this weekend, so it was a pretty fun wild card weekend. Some pretty close games, which was expected, but definitely some surprising turnouts, I'd say. So that was pretty good. But I hope everyone is doing well so far. I do have a guest joining me today. Hi, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm doing swell. How are you?
Doing well, yeah. So Steve is a big Boston sports guy. He does have a Red Sox podcast on Barstool Sports, and he also does some work for Bleacher Report. So do you want to just talk to us a little bit about, how you started working in sports and how long you've been doing it?
Yeah, for sure. I started off going to Endicott, and that was very important. Endicott College in Beverly, Mass. That was super important because
My
of the
sister goes there.
internship. Oh, really? Go Gulls!
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's I'm obsessed with Endicott because they require 3 internships, and I in college I was like, all right, cool, yeah, internships are going to be necessary. They are so important. If you don't do internships in college, you have a major step back on the competition, and I wish I knew this even more because I would have tried a little harder getting my sophomore internship. It ended up being at Boston College, and I was at the rec center. I was basically the janitor, so didn't get anything out of that. Freshman year, I was at WEEI. That was really cool. Got to meet guys like Kurt Schilling, Teddy Bruschi, like athletes coming. That was the first time you get used to like being around athletes in the workplace,
Yeah.
which is weird. Like your first introduction to that, there's no way to prepare you for it because this is the guy. Kurt Schilling. I was in the like radio studio. He's just tapping on the window, like, hey, how's it doing? I'm like, yeah, what's going on, buddy? Like, it was impossible, but I caught myself acting normal, which was really weird because I was like 18 and just coming off of like screaming for him to win in the World Series. But yeah, that kind of got the wheels rolling. EEI internship freshman year, senior year was Comcast Sportsnet. I freelanced there. They're now NBC Sports Boston, the longest name of all time. They need to tighten that up.
Yeah.
But it's ridiculous. But that was a lot of fun. That basically led into my job at Nesson, and I was there for 2.5 years as a production assistant. A lot of fun times, some not so fun times there, but you learn a lot about the industry, and it kind of throws you into the fire, which is good. I realized my time there was coming to an end. We were going to mutually part ways. I said that I was retiring just because I didn't want to say that I wasn't getting like rehired, which is basically what was the thing. I wasn't getting renewed. So I realized I needed to do something else. I didn't know what the next move was going to be. I reached out to this kid named Jared Carabas, who I did not know at all at the time. This was in 2015. And I hit him up on LinkedIn because that was the only way I knew. That was the only way to get in touch with him. His DMs weren't open, which is stunning. And so I reached out to him on LinkedIn. I've never done that with anybody ever. He technically also went to Endicott, even though he did night classes. So we say that he's a gull, put that in quotes. And I hit him up. I had just heard about his podcast that they had started recently, the Section 10 podcast. I heard about it because of Gary Streisky, who was an anchor at Nesson at the time. He was their first guest. He retweets the show. I'm like, who is this Jared guy? Let's see what this is all about. When the podcast started with the ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Section 10 podcast, I was like, holy hell, they got the PA guy at Fenway to do the intro to the show. So these guys must be some kind of big deal. And he was like, yeah, we're actually looking for a producer. This is great timing. I start with them as a producer. And then we've done 367 episodes since then. So it's been a long ride for sure. And yeah, the last 5 years I've been working at Bleacher Report. Started off as just a programmer on the app, getting a lot of content in there. And now I kind of lead our AMA charge, which I realized at first, I thought everyone knew what AMA meant. Apparently, everyone does not know that means ask me anything. I thought everyone understood. Like, I thought we as like humans were all like, all right, we know what AMA is, but it's not as like, did you know what an AMA is?
Yeah, I know what that means, but there's definitely people that I know that don't know what that means.
Okay, it blew my mind.
Said that to somebody in like a text message, I don't think they know what I'm talking about.
Damn. Okay, I thought it was way more common than I initially thought. But yeah, basically, I'll lead like our AMAs. With athletes, we'll have guys from Dwayne Wade, George Kittle, huge names, Sean White. They're basically some of the biggest names across like all the sports. I'll get the top answers from the users in our app. And then I get to interview these players and try to get the best content we can. Thing I love about it, we just had LeVar Ball on a couple weeks ago, and you get these quotes that then make headlines all across the sports world. And I love that because it's like it's unique to us. Like we got that piece of content and then everyone ran with it. And so that makes it kind of an exclusive with Bleacher Report. So I really enjoy doing that amongst other things with that company. And yeah, Section 10 has been going on for longer than BR. It's almost 6 years. And that's sick. God, almost been doing it for 6 years. That's insane. But yeah, that basically catches us up to now.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And it seems like you've had a lot of good opportunities and experiences. And when you were mentioning internships, I can't emphasize that enough either. Every time people ask me for my biggest piece of advice, if you want to go into the sports industry, I always say, do as many internships and get as much hands-on experience as you can when you're in college, because it's really going to put you above others if you have different types of experience that you can talk about in an interview. And I know from my sister's experience, Endicott does do a good job with the internships, and with the fact that they're required to do those, it just forces students to get off campus and do things that they might not do if they didn't have that requirement as part of the curriculum.
I think looking back on it, because I was 18 at the time, which is like insane. I'm 30 now, but 18 at the time. And it's so important at that age to just get thrown into the fire. Like it's extremely important to not really know what you're doing and just get thrown into a situation and be like, all right, this is kind of what it's like. Like I immediately found out what the industry is like, what would kind of be expected, the different roles people have. And at college, I mean, come on now, you're not like, there's no scenario at Endicott College that I was going to feel like I'm ready to dominate the sports world after this, like, sports communication class. Like, no, like that. College is such like, it's one of the best times of my life. Absolutely love the 4 years at Endicott. Got to do a sports radio show there that kind of gave me the confidence to then eventually do a podcast. But until you get like into the field and actually experience what it's like, you have no idea what you're doing. So that is like super important for people to do internships and to get experience as young as you can.
Yeah, when I was in my classes in college, I mean, I definitely enjoyed the classes I was taking in my major, but then I'd go and do an internship and I'd apply some of the skills I've learned in my classes to that internship. But what I was doing was nothing like what my classes were. So it was like, if I hadn't had those types of experiences, I might not have known for sure that it was the field I even wanted to go into if I didn't do that.
Yeah, college classes they'll prepare you. Technically, they'll prepare you for what it's like after school, but a lot of it, I was sports management major and a communications minor. I learned a lot more from the communications minor in terms of, versus the sport management major, because a lot of my friends in sport management classes wanted to become an agent. They wanted to become Scott Boras. Like they wanted to be like the next like big thing in the agent world. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like you got to deal with numbers and all that. No, thanks. So I probably should have just majored in communications, but the tough part there is it's a lot of papers and it's a lot of writing. It's a lot of just words. And I would way rather do something in front of a mic, than have to write a lot of things down. So luckily sports management kind of takes you out of that responsibility a little bit. But it's just, circling back to it, it's just super, super, super important to get as many internships in as you can before you graduate, because then you're really behind if you don't do that.
Yeah, definitely. I went to Ithaca College and I really, really liked it there. And they had a great program for sports media. And I definitely got a lot of good internship experience when I was there too. And I remember when I was interviewing for jobs first out of college, a lot of the hiring managers mentioned how my resume stood out because of the internship experience that I had and how many different types of internships I was doing. So it really does put you ahead of people. The more types of experiences like that you can get outside of your coursework.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember just putting a resume together and being like, thank God I have these internships, or else I'm going to put like the burger joint that I was like the cashier at. What am I supposed to put on here for these guys to look at? It's ridiculous. So when you get that, at least it makes it look like it's so funny trying to make a resume seem cooler than it really is. Like when you're really trying to like make that thing, like I've done a lot of cool things when you really haven't done a damn thing. So being able to put WEEI, even though Boston College, I was basically a janitor. I made it. If you read that, you'd be like, this kid ran the entire college. It's like, no, I was just cleaning up trash. But if you can put those names down there, the name recognition is huge.
Yeah, definitely. I know. I remember that when I was building my resume too, but it definitely seems like your experience was really worthwhile because you're definitely doing a lot with it now and you're really successful in the sports field. So I'm really happy that you were able to take the time to be on the show because I'm definitely looking forward to it. And I think we're going to have a good conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. So on that note, I do want to start by talking about the Red Sox. I love baseball. It's my favorite sport. It's been my favorite sport ever since I've been growing up a Boston sports fan and been a big Red Sox fan my whole life. My dad, unfortunately, is a Yankees fan,
Oh,
so we had a household rivalry going on pretty much my whole life with him being a New York fan, and he likes the Giants too, and I like the Patriots. So we've had some pretty fun times in my house, but the Red Sox have always been my favorite of my Boston teams, I'd say for sure. So I first of all miss baseball. I'm looking forward to it coming back. I'm hoping that they actually end up having a full season this year. They are saying as of now that they're planning on having teams report for spring training on time and have a regular full 162 game season, which would be really nice. And it's hard to know for sure if that's actually going to pan out right now, but hopefully that actually does happen. So if we do see that, then fingers crossed that people will be able to actually go to games this year and be in the stands. So
yeah, from the sound of it, that's going to happen. So, like, from the
yeah,
sound of it, fans will be able to be in the stands. I mean, you look at the college football championship last night, and I mean, it's weird, right? It's funny that it's in Miami. It's in the same place that they had the Super Bowl to start 2020, and now it's like literally just like a year later, and it's like the world is collapsing. But I can't. There's no scenario that I am not going to be at Fenway Park in 2021 or just this year. Like, there's no way this season I'm going to miss being there again. And I say me like in a selfish way intentionally, because it's like you can't miss 2 straight seasons of Red Sox baseball at Fenway Park. I don't care how bad the team is. This isn't about the team. This is just about being at Fenway, the nostalgia of that, just walking up the tunnel. Nothing beats that. And if you're going to take that away for a second straight year, then people would lose their minds. So from the sound of it, they're trying to set it up so that they can have as many fans there as possible. That seems to be the approach. But yeah, we'll see what actually happens, because it's going to look weird. It's not going to be packed.
no.
So they're going to probably have some scenario where it's like, all right, in this section, you can be there, especially Fenway Park. I mean, my goodness, those seats are so packed in. They're really going to have to give enough people, separation for it to work.
Yeah, I agree. It's not going to be the same environment as we're used to seeing at Fenway, but if it's something that's better than not being able to go to games at all, I'd rather be able to actually go to games than
Yeah.
not go, because it was definitely weird last summer. And granted, I still watched every game, but it's not the same as going to games and being there in person. And it's my favorite thing to do in the summer is go to Fenway and go to a baseball game. So hopefully that they can work that out so that they're able to do it and as best as they can, and hopefully we do see a full season like they're saying they will. But in terms of the Red Sox and this offseason, they've definitely expressed interest in a lot of players. Not much yet has been done, and there is still time for that, but obviously the pitching is the main focus right now and needs to be the top priority. And so I know that they've expressed interest in multiple players, Corey Kluber being one, Jake Odorizzi being another. Alex Colomé is a name that's come up recently, which would be great because he's a real closer and they actually need a real closer now. So what are your thoughts on all of that in terms of the pitching and some of those players with the names that are being thrown out, and what they should do and how they can best go about signing pitchers this offseason?
Yeah, I think the funny thing is that Jake Odorizzi's name coming up, I was like, oh, I'm pumped. Like, we have serious interest in like a competent starter. Like that's really where we've gotten to at this point, that it took that report for me to be genuinely excited about what the Red Sox are looking to do. Obviously, Heimblum, like, there's a lot of Red Sox fans and a lot of people that comment on Section 10 stuff that will just be like, oh, Heimblum's an idiot, dude. He doesn't know what he's doing. This is garbage. Look at this team. They got rid of Mookie Betts, blah, blah, blah. Heimblum's not a Dumbo. He knows what he's doing. You have to give him time. The moves he's made, I mean, just based off of Tanner Houck and Nick Pivetta alone, you got that for nothing now. Like, Workman and Hembry got put in the trash in Philly. So like you got 2 free starters there. Now how good they're going to be, who knows? Tanner Houck, everyone's really high on him after 3 starts.
Yeah, it's just too small of a sample size right now to know for sure.
Very small sample size, but at the bare minimum, you have 2 starters, quote unquote, and he got that for nothing. So I do trust time to build this team back up. The tough part as a Red Sox fan, especially coming off of 2018, which is still basically 2 years ago, it's a completely different roster. You're dealing with a completely different rotation. The guys that you had on that team that are still on this team, you gave way too much money to. Chris Sale and Nathan Eovaldi. We love the moves when they happen because we were in party mode. Like, we're still celebrating a World Series. So everyone's like, oh, you guys love the move when it happened. Of course we did. Red Sox just won like 119 games in a World Series. Sign them all. Yeah, we're like popping champagne. Who cares? So obviously we're going to be excited. But then the second that you wake up, from the hangover, you're just like, oh, wow, we really gave Nathan Eovaldi that much money over 4 years. We extended Chris Sale when we could have just let him go to free agency and then paid him less money. So it's tough now when you have to talk yourself into Sale being a big part of this team when he might be back in like the middle of the summer. Eovaldi had a good close to 2020, but he's still a very up and down pitcher. There's no guarantee at all that he's going to be able to pitch all of 2021. Erod could barely even walk after having COVID. Your rotation sucks. Like as of right now, the Red Sox rotation is trash, and there's a bunch of question marks. Best case scenario, Erod is somewhere like he was in 2019 this year. Eovaldi stays healthy and is decent. Chris Sale gets back a little earlier than you thought and pitches well. And Houck actually consistently pitches well, more than 3 starts, and we can actually say that he's a legitimate starter for this team. But there's a lot of question marks, and Chaim's going to do everything he possibly can to fix it. But until they actually sign guys, until they actually fill these holes, then Red Sox fans have every right to be pissed off. You can't possibly go into the next season with the guys you have right now as the rotation. And I don't expect it. Like, I do expect they're going to sign a guy like Odorizzi, or bring in a lower level starter. I thought they might have brought John Lester back. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen. But you're going to add more guys to this team. But as of right now, fans have every right to be upset. They also have to look at other MLB teams, though. Not a lot of teams are making moves. Outside of the Padres, it's not like people are signing a bunch of free agents. So you got to be patient.
Yeah, well, with the Mets signing Lindor, that put some Yankees fans on the edge of their seats, too, because they were like,
I love that.
Why can't the Yankees be next?
I know. It's good for baseball when the Mets are good. I have a lot of Mets fan friends, and I think a lot of people do if you're a person of baseball. So I like when the Mets are good. I like when the Mets now actually have a competent owner that's going to spend money and put them in position to win. And you finally have that now where the Mets and Yankees haven't been good at the same time in a long time. It's normally one or the other, or they both stink. So finally you have, in theory, that rivalry back in New York, which I think is great for the game.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with a lot of what you said, too, about the fans, Red Sox fans being frustrated, because it is frustrating to hear all these names being thrown out and then they're not signing anybody, because the last thing that we all would want is to go into the season as is now, because they cannot do that, because this rotation as is, you just can't gamble with that. And Chris Sale, again, coming off of Tommy John and everything else, you don't know how he's actually going to be. He's not going to be at full strength, likely, at the beginning of the season when he comes back anyway. So we don't know. That's not something that we can rely on fully right now either for when he does come back, and maybe he does come back earlier than expected, like you said. But even if he does, we have to assume that he's not going to be at full strength right away, or that he's not going to pitch the same way right away, because any pitcher that would come off of that type of situation, you can't bank on them being where they were before. So that's the type of thing where, yeah, it's Chris Sale, but at the same time, there needs to be leverage, and they need to sign somebody else into that rotation that can be reliable, because Nathan Eovaldi, I do like him as a pitcher. I think that he's overall somebody that I like being in this rotation, but he's inconsistent. So, we saw it in the 2018 World Series. We saw that Nathan Eovaldi lights out performance against the Dodgers, and everybody was so sold on him after that. Other teams wanted him, and he ended up coming back to Boston. But we've just seen so many performances since then where he's just been so bad, and then he'll come out and he'll be lights out again the next day that he pitches. So with the inconsistency there, and with Houck not being, not having a large enough sample size yet to know how he's going to pan out, there's a lot of holes still that need to be filled. And I'd be thrilled if they did end up signing Odorizzi. I think that'd be the key to the rotation right now. But I still have concerns with the bullpen too, and getting a closer. And I know that Alex Colomé's name was mentioned. So if they can sign him and a starter, then I think I'd be happier and more satisfied going into the season with how the pitching looks.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of fans will have the reaction of like, doesn't Heim even know that like we need pitches? Yes, Heim Bloom is way more aware of what the team needs than you, Joe from Taunton. So like, I just wish more fans would have patience, knowing that this team is not the team that's going to be playing on opening day. This is not the roster. You're going to have more guys here. Now, the tough part is that there haven't been any indications that they're going to make a big splash. Obviously, it's a little difficult with a free agent class like this, especially talking about pitchers, because you're basically looking at Trevor Bauer, and then Oda Rizzi's like the second best pitcher left.
Yeah.
And nothing against him, but he's always, been good at best. So he's a solid pitcher, had flashes in Tampa Bay, was miserable in Minnesota last year. So it's hard to really put all your eggs in one basket when there's not that big name free agent that's still out there. The Red Sox in the 2018 or rather 2017 offseason going into 2018 felt like they needed to add a bat. They finally get JD Martinez at like the start of spring training. So you can't project right now in January what the team's going to look like in spring training, but they better. That's the only thing. That's like you want to be patient, but they better add pitching before the season starts. I'm confident they will, but if you don't get Oda Rizzi, you don't get another top 5 free agent starter in a weak class, then I don't know what your rotation is. You genuinely might have 2 like TBD spots in your rotation. And after watching this team in 2020, there were whole series where they were TBD.
Exactly.
There was a 4-gamer in New York in like August, where it was Nathan Eovaldi for game 1 and then TBD. And it's like, how the hell is that happening to my favorite team? So like, yeah, it was last year was so painful, but the way I look at it, if the Red Sox can compete for a wild card spot with this expanded playoff format now, if they can compete for a wild card spot, I'll be happy, because then you can just at least mentally throw that season into the pandemic. Just be like, everything sucked in 2020. Let's just throw the Red Sox in there as well. And then finally they came out on the other end and they were breathing. So that's all you can really ask for.
Yeah, exactly. It is about being patient and trust that he knows what he's doing and that he'll make something work. But at the same time, it's like, the clock is still ticking. And, the Padres obviously have made a ton of moves. And, they're going to be serious contenders this year. And, they saw, after the Dodgers in 2020 and everything, they knew what they needed to do to adjust. And that's what we all like to see from our own teams. But outside of them, it's not like the Red Sox are behind everybody else and they're the one team that's sitting there and hasn't made any moves. It's not like other teams in the AL East have really done much of anything either. So, you have to just be patient, I think, and just wait and see what they do. But yeah, the pitching definitely needs to be addressed, and I'd love to see them get another closer that is an actual closer like Colomé, because I don't think I can handle watching Matt Barnes or somebody pitch the 9th inning like that. He's just not reliable enough, and they would just throw random pitchers into the 9th inning in 2020, and that didn't work.
Yeah, the thing, like Matty Backpacks, the thing with Matt Barnes that kills me is, and Cora backs him, a lot of the players back him. He's a Section 10 alum, so that's all great and good. But he's the kind of guy that when it's a clutch situation, you need to hold a 1-run lead. It just frequently feels like Matt Barnes is not the guy you want on the mound. And this is where all the stat nerds just need to shut up. Because like there's technically is Thorpe in the 7th inning or later when it's a 1-run. There are certain pitchers that you need to use the eye test on. Matt Barnes is one of them. And if you ask the majority of Red Sox fans if they're comfortable with Matt Barnes being the closer this year, I would have to imagine like 80 to 90% would say no. Yeah. So that is, at certain times, you just need to look at it like that instead of bringing in his D-WAR map bat. Like I hate when we're throwing in all these stats that I've never heard of before to try to define a guy that I've watched every Matt Barnes appearance, and it's not like we're missing the games. Like we're wasting a lot of our time, but we are watching these games. And I always come out of it being like, okay. Like best case scenario, it feels like he'll strike out the first 2 guys and then let 2 on and then get out of it. It's like, all right, that's Matt Barnes. So I don't know.
It keeps you on the edge of your seat every single time he comes into pitch. And I just get so nervous every time I see him coming out of that bullpen. And I'm like, oh gosh, this could go one of 2 ways right now.
And that's the perfect definition for like how you feel about a player. Like when he comes out of the pen, how do I feel? how do I feel about this bullpen guy the second he walks out? And when it was Barnes, I would always go, oh, great, Matty Backpacks is coming in. So
I'm not thrilled, usually.
I know. Maybe it's because of the nickname we gave him. Like, I know he came in a baseball tavern once with a backpack on, and then Jared and I just looked at each other like, oh, there's Matty Backpacks. And so, like, that's if he didn't have the nickname Matty Backpacks, then I would think better of him, because sometimes your nickname can just completely change your opinion of somebody. But all things considered, Matt Barnes, I do not trust, which is the key with a bullpen guy.
Yeah, I would trust having somebody like an Alex Colomé more, who actually is a real closer, to come in the ninth inning and have Matt Barnes like a bridge to him or something like that.
Yeah, when you're the Red Sox, you have a real closer. They haven't had like a fill, and I'm not really counting last year. Last year was a throwaway season. They haven't had a fill-in closer in a long time. And you could make the case for Koji Uehara because he was the third string closer on the 2013 team, but he still ends up being an all-star closer, so that doesn't really count either because he actually dominated. So they haven't really had a fill-in guy that wasn't a specific, here's money, you pitch for us as closer, you good, in a long, long time. So there's no way to feel comfortable about that if you're a Red Sox fan, that if they went into the season with Barnes or insert guy here as the closer. I trust Cora with my life. Like if he is going to be able, if anyone's going to be able to patch together a bullpen, it's going to be Alex Cora, but I do not want to have the TBD guy coming out of the pen to close the game.
Yeah, exactly. So that's another thing, obviously, that needs to be addressed. So we'll see how they handle that going forward. And I hope that obviously he realizes, that he needs a closer. So hopefully we see that happen sooner rather than later. But I think if they make a couple adjustments to the pitching, they're going to be better than I think people think they're going to be. Because a lot of people are like, oh no, the Red Sox are just going to be one of those teams that just we don't have to worry about for a while. But I think that if they make a few key moves here, then I think that they actually could compete for a wild card spot, because the Rays and the Yankees are still going to be up there in the division. The Blue Jays are only getting better too, but I think that if they have the ability to be able to go for a wild card spot, there just needs to be a couple changes made if they don't go in as they are now. But they're also now saying that they would entertain trade talks for Benny. So if they do move Benintendi, I guess the question would be, how would the outfield look? Would they try to sign somebody like Ozuna for a short-term deal or something like that? Or what do you think that they would do? Because, I mean, the JBJ situation, obviously everybody's been wondering what's going to happen there. But it almost seems to me like them signing Hunter Renfroe almost was because they don't plan on bringing Jackie Bradley Jr. back.
Yeah, I think Renfroe was a depth move. It gives you the option to lose JBJ. It also allows you to have more guys that can play the outfield that have pop if you keep JBJ. So I think that was just the we can't go wrong here move, especially for a 1-year deal, not that much money. Benintendi, Benny Butt Cheeks. This is tough. Because we love Andrew Benintendi. He's an absolute stud. Guy hits 103 last year. It's so hard. It's so hard. Like, I can't believe this is what we're talking about. Like, I can't believe this is that we're here now with Benny. Like,
I know.
He comes up late 2016. Kid's just gorgeous, right? Comes out of the minors. Everyone wants to marry him, myself included. And he hits well. He has a home run in the playoff series against the Indians. He seems to fit in. He seems like a natural. Like, he has a nice smooth swing. And 2017, he has a solid year. 2018, he was good. The averages each year are declining, and the pop is declining. And all of a sudden, you're now in this position where I saw the trade rumors, and I'm like, if we lose Benny, whatever. Like, I can't believe that's the case in early 2021. This is when he should be thriving. This kid's 26, or he's going to be 26. This is when he should be absolutely thriving. And it's just unfortunate that we're at this point now. But if you lose Benny, from the sound of it, they're trying to get an outfielder back in that trade. I don't know if that would be a prospect outfielder or somebody that can fill in immediately. Ozuna, I haven't heard any indications they're going to go after him. I wish, I want Ozuna badly.
But he has never been really brought up when it comes to the Red Sox.
No, unfortunately. I mean, his name hasn't come up with many teams, honestly. I think someone will. It might be similar to JD, where his price comes down a little bit and then they finally get him. But I'm saying for whatever team, not the Red Sox. But yeah, I don't know what it would look like as of now because there's too many outliers. There's too many factors that we wouldn't even know. Teams that they're talking to about deals, players they're talking to, free agents that they're talking to about signing. Whether if they brought like Pilar back, like there's other options that you could fill in the outfield with that wouldn't have to be long term. That would give you some versatility, especially without having to spend too much money. That you could then look at what the future is going to look like. But it's crazy that the idea of losing Benny doesn't even have me like that upset. That shows you how far he has fallen. Even since the World Series year, he was a contributor. He wasn't a huge contributor, but he had a good year in 2018. He has the most important catch in Red Sox history for my money.
Yeah, none of us is ever going to forget that.
Insane. Absolutely insane. So he has that attached to him, which is a good thing. But there's really no excuse for him being this at this point of his career and this lack of production. There's no reason why at 26 years old he should be a guy that we're okay with losing when he was one of the top prospects in baseball.
I know. Yeah, and I feel the exact same way. I heard the trade rumors, and I was like, okay. Do what you got to do. Like, I'm not super upset about it. The idea of losing him actually upsets me less than the idea of losing JBJ. Yeah. And I think obviously JBJ, it's that talent that he has defensively that's going to be really, really hard to fill. And it's, most likely – as of now, they probably would have Verdugo play center, but it's just going to be hard to fill that defensive talent in JBJ. But it's just at this point, it just doesn't seem like there's really. At first, they were saying they want to make keeping JBJ a priority, but it's starting to feel like that's not really as much of a priority anymore.
Yeah, they've said a lot of that. I think with Jackie, they've said all the right things, but at the end of the day, it's I don't think anyone really thinks he's coming back. Jackie he had our boy Billy Weiss, the photographer, taking all these shots of him in center field with Fenway behind him, very much saying like, this is the last time I'm in this position. Let's get a nice catalog of pics for the IG. But I really don't expect Jackie to be back. I think they're saying all the right things. I hate to say this, but I feel like part of it is coming off of what happened last summer with all the race issues, and that Jackie felt like he needed to be the face of that with the Red Sox, which I thought was extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's like just because he's black.
Weird.
Just because he's black, he shouldn't have had to be like the face of that discussion for the Red Sox. It's like that should be a team thing. Yeah. So I would hope that doesn't mean that they're trying to still save face by being like, no, we're really having combos with Jackie. Like, come on, this should all be baseball stuff. But I don't expect him back. And there's really no way to know what the outfield's going to look like yet. There's too many other pieces. There's too many other moves that could happen. But if you lose Benny, you're going to have to add multiple pieces. You're going to have to, if you lose Benny and JBJ, then it's insane to think your entire outfield from 2018 is gone. But you would then have to.
But at this point, nobody.
That happened too fast. But you would then have Verdugo, Renfroe, and you need at least two more guys, probably three, to patch together the outfield. Unless you had, I don't even like. They're not going to sign. You look at some of the big free agents in the outfield. They're not going to sign Ozuna. They're not going to sign Springer.
No.
So it's like there's not many other options that you would even have. Like Brantley, like
when free agency started, that signing Springer was a possibility, but that's not going to happen.
Sounds like it's not. And it's, between the Mets and a couple other teams, and we'll see what actually happens. But the Mets want to be the Padres. They want to make all the moves and be the face of the offseason and have all the headlines. And it makes sense. You're in Queens, you're in New York, you want to have all the newspapers talking about you instead of the football teams because they all actually suck. So it's a good time. It's a good time for the Mets to be thriving because the Yankees are, they're slow pacing it with LeMahieu, and their rotation stinks just as much as the Red Sox does. So if you're the Mets, this is when you should strike and should try to grab the headlines. Yeah,
because the Yankees, if they don't fix their rotation, then that's going to be a problem for them because they can't go in with the rotation they have now and expect to be serious contenders either. If they end up re-signing DJ LeMahieu, which at this point is looking less and less likely because he's getting frustrated with them now. And now he even said, I don't know if you saw this, but yesterday something came out about how the Red Sox were a team that had expressed interest in him. So now he asked his agent to get back in talks with the Red Sox and other teams to see if somebody can get a deal done because he's too frustrated with the Yankees at this point. And so that fan base is just getting overly frustrated. But even if they were to re-sign DJ LeMahieu, but they didn't fix their rotation, then they're going to be right there with the Red Sox. They're not going to be that much better than the Red Sox unless the Red Sox fix their rotation too. So it's like if the Red Sox pitching moves and the Yankees don't, then it's not that far-fetched to say that the Yankees won't be that much better than the Red Sox.
Yeah, I mean, the Red Sox had the most hits in the American League last year. I think that gets kind of forgotten because the pitching was so bad. But Sox offense is still going to dominate. They're still going to be really good. It would be almost impossible for JD to have a worse year than he did last year. So the fact that they put up the offensive numbers as a team that they did without their, former MVP candidate doing literally anything shows that the offense is pretty deep. And I obviously love Verdugo. I think he's been a great fit with the team. They need him energy-wise. So Red Sox offense is going to be fine. Yeah. And I think LeMahieu does end up with the Yankees. This is a lot of the typical negotiation stuff where it's like, oh, he's frustrated. It's like all this stuff is very methodically leaked. It's like, okay, he's upset. Let's give that piece to Heyman. He'll tweet it out. The Yankees are like, all right, well, we need to bring the dollar amount down. Let's give that to Rosenthal. He'll tweet that. And this is just kind of how this goes, and it's the back and forth. And so we'll see. I mean, I love DJ LeMahieu. He played for the Harwich Mariners. I got to watch him play in the Cape League a while ago. This is like 12, 13 years ago. But he seems like a good dude. He stays out of trouble. He's just a ball player. He just shows up, hits like 350 every year and goes home. Like that's the guy you want on your team, causes no trouble.
He's a consistent hitter, so it's like, why would you not want somebody like that?
Yeah, he's one of the most consistent hitters in baseball over the last decade. So
exactly.
I don't know why you wouldn't want, especially at second base. You don't get that at second too often, so might as well keep him.
Yeah, and I kind of like the whole thing though, because I kind of like their fans getting so frustrated on Twitter and everything. I find it kind of entertaining, to be honest.
It is. Trust me, that there's a lot to be said about Yankee fans being upset and how enjoyable that is for us to see. They've been upset for a long time. They haven't won a World Series since I was a sophomore in college. It's been a long time since the Yankees have actually gotten to the top. So that's something that we'll always enjoy seeing.
Yeah, exactly. I know there was also, kind of mixed feelings on this, but what was your initial reaction when they actually pulled that trigger and decided to rehire Alex Cora? Because we knew that it was likely going to be him, and everything was building up, and they were saying he was the top candidate, but people were saying, he's back in the league too soon and everything else. I don't know how he's even going to do it because it's a completely different team now. But what are your thoughts on that whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's a multi-layered situation. I love it personally for the podcast. He's a friend of the program. He follows us in the show. So, there are a lot of times now where I look at it from a fan perspective, and then I look at it from the podcast perspective. And fan perspective, if we didn't have the show, I probably would have thought, all right, there's a lot that goes into this, right? Because if Yankee fans and all these other fans, because this is going to happen, and it's already happened and you're ready for it, like, oh, yeah, well, your manager's a cheater. And so then you need to have that back and forth of like, no, it was with Houston. And, oh, no, what about 2018? Oh, no, that was nothing. Everyone was doing that. So it's like, I hate that conversation. And the second they hired Cora, they signed us all up for that convo about 5 million more times. So it's like, can't wait for that. But as a manager, it's hard to find a better manager right now than Alex Cora that knows the game, that's been around the game, that isn't rattled in big situations. Like whatever people want to say about 2018, the most important thing to me about that investigation is that they had MLB officials in the replay room for the playoffs. The Red Sox, at worst case scenario, didn't do a damn thing for the entire playoff run, and they crushed everyone. So there's nothing that really makes me lose sleep with the 2018 Red Sox stuff, and that's the same manager you're going to have in 2021. So exactly. I'm not really that concerned about all the outside noise and all that. At the bare minimum, we have a manager that's accountable with his guys, that took full responsibility for what happened in Houston, even though he damn sure was not the only person involved with what was going on there. That was a full organization. That was a full organizational thing. So let's not act like Cora was the only guy. Doesn't make it any better, but still. And he's a guy that relates with these players. He's bilingual. That helps. You have a lot of players in this team that speak multiple languages, and English not being their most comfortable one, so that helps. And they've been there, done that. He has a ring in Boston that's not tarnished, and that can't be taken from him. So I think he's coming in. I just know personally that he's coming in ready to just dominate. Like Cora wants to come in and shut everybody up because that's all he heard for the last years. Cheater,
Yeah.
cheater, cheater, discrediting all the accomplishments he's had. He wants to come in and he wants these guys to be fired up to prove that 2020 was the outlier, that this team can actually compete for not only just a wild card spot, but to go, deep into the playoffs. So obviously you need the horses, you need players, you need a rotation, but the Red Sox aren't that far away from being one of the better teams in the American League. I feel like people are just kind of so caught up on the pitching that if you actually have some pieces fall into place, Erod comes back and he's like he was in 2019. Sale isn't, the worst coming off the injury. I don't have the highest expectations. You add a couple more pieces. They're not that far from having a decent rotation, which is all I'm asking for now, and one of the best lineups in baseball, not just the American League. So you combine that with Alex Cora, who's been there, done that. I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, me too. And I tell everybody this too when people are like, oh, yeah, the Red Sox are not going to be contenders for a while. And I'm like, they have a lot of pieces to do it. Yeah, they have holes that they need to fill with the pitching, but people forget about how good the offense is, and they're still going to be dominant on that side of the ball. But obviously, you can't just rely on that and then have them, because it's not like you can rely on the offense to have big leads every game and then just have the bullpen come in and blow those leads. So obviously, granted, you need to fix the pitching side of it. But overall, they do have a lot of pieces that they can use to be able to be contenders soon. And I think people are just not really realizing that. But we'll see what happens. And if they make those couple key moves that we were talking about, then I think that they actually could be up there with the Rays and the Yankees sooner than people think that they will be.
Yeah, and the Rays losing Snell is enormous. So who knows how that's going to impact them? That's a big deal. Overall, it's interesting when you look at the Red Sox history, especially this century, basically, since like 2001, 2002, specifically since 2003, that first Red Sox-Yankees ALCS. They don't go long periods of time without being a team that's competing for a World Series. It's 2004, you win it all. 2005, they made the playoffs. 2006, they missed the playoffs. 2007, you win it all. 2008, you're a game away from the World Series. You just go down the line. And the biggest gap was 2010 to 2012. They missed the playoffs 3 years in a row. 2011, they were the best team in baseball for like 4 months. So it's like the Red Sox don't, and this ownership, the constant thing here is the ownership group has been the same that whole time. They don't go long periods of time without having a roster that's going to not only compete for the wild card, but compete for a World Series. So I love, it's always the typical, again, it's the Bob and Taunton, that they always love going way too far and being like, this team's not going to be competitive till like 2030. Remember the Mookie trade? Like, you have to look at it season by season. This isn't just something that's going to go on for years to come. The Red Sox are not that far from competing for a playoff spot, and that's it. That's literally it. It's not like there's going to be some long playoff list drought for this team. That just doesn't happen, especially with the salary. The Red Sox finally got rid of the stupid luxury tax garbage, and they can spend now.
Like that whole David Price situation. I think everybody's happy that they kind of relieved themselves of that. Because it was just I was like, they were paying this guy way too much money.
Yeah, I never loved Price. So I just don't love his attitude, and everyone gets that. Then it's like, oh, well, he should have won. I thought he should have won World Series MVP. But there's a very important thing you also have to say along with that, which is the Red Sox bailed him out in his first 2 or 3 starts in the playoffs that year. Yeah. So you don't have the Red Sox offense bailing him out, then he doesn't get the chance to win, World Series MVP. So he was half good in the playoffs. And overall, his career in Boston is just, he had moments. He wasn't fun to watch for me at all. He took forever on the mound. And he's the guy that I'm fine is gone.
Yeah, no, me too, for sure. And I think that it makes a big difference in, the amount of money that they can spend. So I'm hoping that they utilize these next couple months until the season starts wisely, and they just really keen in on the pitching, because I'm pretty confident in the offense. I do love that they hired Bianca Smith too into the Red Sox organization. I think that says a lot about the organization, and it gives females like me that work in sports, hope that maybe we can end up in those types of situations going forward. And there's been a lot of opportunities for females that we've seen this past year. So I'm really proud of the Red Sox for making that move and being the team to do that too.
Yeah, I think it's important for many reasons, but the biggest one being it's a step in the right direction towards having more women involved in baseball. At the base value, it's very important. image wise that it's like, here, you can not only just be a part of our organization, you can be a coach. You can be a coach in this organization, a team that's won 4 World Series, this century. So that it's extremely important that you set the tone that way. A lot of people will just jump to say it's a PR move and they want, all the pat on the back they can get for doing something like that. The Red Sox being an organization that was the last one to have a black player on the team in the 60s. So they obviously have a history of, not having the biggest balance in races within their organization. So that is very important. They made that move. You hope it's for the right reasons, all encompassing for the right reasons. And then you hope that they build off of that and give more women chances within the organization to prove themselves. Because it's funny whenever you look at your current situation with any industry, doesn't matter whatever industry you're in. It's funny when you take a step back and you look at it from like a bird's eye view. And I do this with the sports industry all the time, where I try to look at it from a girl's perspective, being whether it's Bleacher Report, Nesson, NBC Sports, just places I've been. I've always tried to look at it from the opposite gender's perspective because it's way easier for me. It just is. I have more people that look like me. I have the numbers. It's normally 70-30 male, maybe 80-20. So there are a lot of times where I think a lot of guys specifically in this industry, whether it's with the Red Sox, whether it's with the Celtics, I'm talking like within the organization, within the company, look at things from other perspectives. Don't just be so pigeonholed that it's like, all right, here's the same, white male 30-year-old, take on this. Let's integrate more people, more opinions, and you're going to grow from that. At the bare minimum, you're going to hear more people's thoughts and get a wider range of opinions than you're saying the same thing that me and my buddy Mike, our same opinion on how we should approach this. Let's even say something as small as like how we approach this tweet after a game. Like, let's get a wider range of opinions so that can just, grow us as a company. I think everyone should do that. That's why it's huge the Red Sox are taking this step, and hopefully they take more steps on top of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, I find that too, working in the sports industry. I mean, at ESPN, it's the same. Even my department at ESPN was primarily for the most part, yeah. I mean, men, and then it was me and 2 other females that I worked with for the longest time, and then they hired a couple more. So I mean, they're continuing to grow that aspect of it, I think, and more diversity when it comes to the sports industry as a whole, I think, which is nice to see. But yeah, there's more and more females now, I think that are being able to work their way into the sports field and really establish themselves. And hopefully what the Red Sox did by hiring her, other teams start to do similar things too.
It has a huge impact as well on the youth that follow the team. Like, I remember being so impacted by the moves the Red Sox made on and off the field when I was like 7 and 8. And it's like, all right, they're trading for this guy. All right, they're signing one of my favorite players. They're making this move. Like, that kind of stuff. And just like seeing how an organization is run can completely change your opinion of kind of what's going on behind the scenes. And it's super important that younger kids and younger generations understand we have a lot of work to do in bringing more voices into the equation. And I think if that's the case, they can then go towards a meeting, go towards trying to get a job with that mindset. And that just changes everybody's mindset as kind of a domino effect. So that's very important.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. And I'm definitely proud of the Red Sox for doing that. I'm looking forward to the season. We'll see how it goes. I think that, obviously there's still question marks about just the baseball season in general, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. I miss it. I talk about that all the time, how I want my baseball back. So yeah, hopefully it does happen soon. But really quickly here, I just want to get your quick thoughts on just this start of the Celtics season and how they've been doing. And now they're facing all these COVID challenges. So they keep having to postpone games. They moved tomorrow's game too, just today. So they have all these games now being postponed, which is actually probably a good thing because they only had 8 players that were active that could have actually been playing. So it's a good thing that they're doing that, but it's just, the whole situation is just crazy. It's like one thing after another, really, it seems like. But what are your thoughts on just how they've looked since the season started?
Yeah, my biggest takeaway from just the NBA and what's going on with the league right now is it's as if they looked at how they handled the bubble and thought that was going to be a direct correlation to how they handle teams and players around the country and around families and around friends. And it's like you can't base your success in an isolated area where you can control the environment with what your potential success is going to be when it's now the entire United States of America. So I don't know if they got too cocky. I don't know if they, didn't have tight enough protocols, but I think it's pretty clear based off of how things have gone that the protocols are not tight enough. Also, let's be real. I feel like a lot of people don't like talking about this, but it's like, let's see who these players, young in their 20s, single, who they're surrounding themselves with are, let's say in some scenarios, maybe not the best people to surround yourself with in terms of following COVID protocols.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these people are going to clubs. A lot of them are not paying attention because we're young. And even if we get it, we'll be okay, which studies and, facts have shown you have a better chance, obviously, of being okay if you're younger and don't have health issues. I get it. But it's very clear that they're dealing with a bigger monster than they initially thought they were. And it's impacted the Celtics, it looks like, most out of any of these teams. And I saw a tweet today that was like the Celtics have propelled themselves to the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference after a hot start. And I'm like, they've had a good start, but they're the first seed in the East because they're not playing games. And other teams are losing. That's why they're like going up. Like it's not like they just like won by 30 points last night. They canceled another game.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, great year by the Boston Celtics. It's like, no, the issue is very clear. They need to get on top of trying to deal with the season that happens around the entire country during a pandemic. They do not know how to do that yet. Very clear that's the case. And I don't know how they're going to accomplish that when you have guys like Kyrie, that bum, who's at a party with a bunch of people. And then you have a lot of guys doing this. Harden's doing the same thing. And let's be real. Like there's probably a lot of guys that are not following the protocols and it just doesn't happen to be on camera. So we don't see it, but I'm sure there's plenty of guys that are hanging out with groups of friends and family and people that haven't been tested. That's just obvious that that's what's happening. So outside of that, Celtics do look good. They had a tough start. I think they should have lost to the Bucks. And they almost lost to the Pacers there. There was a good chance they could have started the year 0-4. They've bounced back. Tatum, I think, has taken some fewer hero shots, those fadeaway threes at the end of the shot clock and the end of the game that I hate. Him and Brown are becoming one of the best duos in basketball, one of the best duos the Celtics have ever had. So that's definitely good to see. You go down the roster, though, and they're not that deep a team. I think that's something you're going to need guys like Grant Williams to step up. You're going to need even Tremont Waters to play some important minutes. Nesmith, I have no idea what they're going to get from him.
I know.
He doesn't feel like he's ready yet, even though he's definitely, I watched him a little bit in Vandy. He's definitely a pure shooter, but those things only matter if you can actually do it in the pros. You're a pure shooter until you get rattled by the NBA and you're no longer a pure shooter. So we'll see if he can adjust to this level. Marcus has had a weird start to the season. I feel like a lot of times he's just doing too much. But yeah, overall, Peyton Pritchard's the greatest player in NBA history, and you go down the line, and they're in good position. Like they actually have a real guard in Pritchard, and Teague he's a veteran that doesn't seem rattled by situations. He's not trying to just launch up shots like Marcus and other guys that have brought up the ball, like Isaiah, guys they've had in the past. So they definitely have a well-balanced group, but now, you got to avoid a virus. Like their biggest issue is now not like what's happening on the court. It's avoiding getting COVID.
I know, really, which is really sad. But I think the chemistry is there, and they've they're involving everybody in the offense, but there are going to have to be a couple players I think that need to step up more because depth has been an issue for them for the last couple of years, and there are other teams that are much deeper than they are. So I'm still waiting and holding out hope for Nesmith and see if he just starts to contribute more. But again, what they're doing, they look pretty good, especially without Kemba being there. So when Kemba comes back, hopefully they'll start playing better then too. That it's like, when you're missing your all-star point guard, obviously you're not sure how everything's going to go. But Jaylen Brown, I've been very, very – I've always liked Jaylen Brown, but he's obviously having a great year, and all the people that were saying they should trade him are pretty quiet now. I never liked that idea. I said he's going to be a great asset to this team. I mean, he's going to have a great career, and he's really starting to show that now. So I think that they'll definitely be a playoff team, but the problem is some of these guys are going to have to step up if they want to actually really compete with some of the other teams.
Yeah, they got to avoid getting the virus. I mean, that's the thing. If Tatum has it, and then Brown gets it, and it's a key factor is not just them getting healthy and recovering, it's them being the same guy afterwards. We've seen plenty of cases of guys getting COVID and not being the same player after they get it. So that's something that I think everyone's like, oh, well, once he comes back, they'll get the rhythm back. There's no guarantee of that. Like, there's absolutely no guarantee they're just going to come back and go into the same form as they were before. So there's a lot of questions. I mean, the unfortunate thing is that you want to be able to just break it down as like how they are as players and how they are as a team. But now you have to break down these teams as how elusive they are of a virus. And it's like, this is nuts, but this is where we're at. This is what we're doing now. So I like what I've seen the last week and a half before, the cancellations.
Yeah.
And ideally they can keep doing that after guys recover, but there's no guarantees at all. So I don't know. It puts us all in a weird spot.
Yeah, it's just crazy to just think back and realize that this is where we're at now, and that coronavirus is what everybody's mainly worried about, not even their performances and how they play as individuals. Because now it's like they could be having their best season ever, but then they get COVID and things just fall apart. So it's crazy how much this has really impacted everybody. You know what I mean? So it's like, with Kemba, it's like, we really don't know. It's going to be, we're going to have to just really see how he plays when he returns, because there is really no guarantee, like you said, that he's going to be back in full form.
Yeah, that's probably the worst part about it, is that even if these guys do recover from COVID, get back, are playing at a high level, you still don't have your all-star caliber guard and Kemba, who had an up and down, obviously, playoffs, and there's still a lot to be said there. I mean, he had very minimal experience in big games in Charlotte, so it's not that crazy that he would have been a little rattled by the moment. But yeah, I want their full roster back. If we can get that, we'll be good.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think they're in good shape. So we have at least something to look forward to there, and then hopefully baseball to look forward to sooner rather than later as well.
You can only hope. I mean, yeah, it's everything's on schedule, but watch them have the same issues as the NBA, and it's like, all right.
I know.
Let's see what happens. I mean, and all things considered, last baseball season went way better than it should have. The Marlins, the Cardinals, whatever. That all went way smoother than it should have. They had no issues in the playoffs until Turner gets it during games 6. So that baseball should feel lucky, honestly, that even amongst all the stupid, talks about how they're going to renew the season and all the negotiations between the MLBPA and the league, once they got over those really annoying hurdles, they had so much more to worry about with COVID, and they found a way to get through it, and they didn't have as many issues as they could have. This year could be a problem. This could be a real issue. They could run into the same exact stuff the NBA is dealing with. So we'll have to see how they adjust.
Yeah, I agree for sure. I think it's going to be one of those situations where they're just going to have to figure things out. And obviously this is an unprecedented situation. So hopefully they're able to handle it appropriately. And I was surprised at how well it went last year. So I guess we'll see how they do it this year, but definitely appreciate you joining me for this episode. Everybody definitely check out his podcast, the Section 10 podcast on Barstool Sports. Really talented guy, definitely knowledgeable about his Boston sports, and is a fellow Endicott Gull like my sister. So that's always welcome too. You all know where to find Boston Balling. You can subscribe to it on any podcast streaming platform or on any social media platform. And I will see you all next Tuesday. You can also purchase Boston Balling attire on bonfire.com if you search Boston Balling. So that's a recent addition too. So everybody knows where to find that. And I'll see you all next Tuesday. So have a great week, everybody.